Hey everyone, thank you for joining me today, and today I'm doing another, I'm basically doing another Legend of Zelda video, and this time I'm going to be doing, well, I guess I'm just going to be giving my overall thoughts and sort of giving my opinion on what I think about Zelda being playable, and yeah, so that's basically what it is. It's just me sort of giving my thoughts on Zelda being playable, and sort of describing, I might add a few more things to it as well, I'll get to that part when I get to it and stuff like that. So, first, so this is basically how I'll do this. First I'll start off with sort of explaining like why this sort of is and stuff like that. And this has sort of been around for like ever since they first revealed the first trailer to Breath of the Wild 2 back in like 2019. Everyone sort of began speculating and wondering if Zelda might be playable because there are a lot of people out there who would love to see Zelda be playable. I certainly would love too. I mean, she's been playable like in spin-offs and like and she's been playable in some main games to like a small extent, I believe. I really have only played like the 3D home console versions. I never played like any of the handheld versions, so I'm not exactly 100% sure. But I feel like she has. But if I'm wrong about that, I do apologize. Okay, I really do apologize. Anyways, but I'm one of the many people out there who would really be, who would who would be very much appreciated if Zelda got a chance to play as well. And there is a pretty good reason why some people necessarily believe this. Now, does this necessarily mean that she has to be playable? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, even if it's just Link by itself, it'll be fine. I mean, Link was the only really playable character in Breath of the Wild, and everyone practically enjoyed that game. Sure, it's got its own faults, but still, I mean, heck, we enjoyed it then, and we should enjoy this now. All right. So I guess I should sort of explain like why this story comes into place. Okay, so let's start with Breath of the Wild 2 first. Okay, so with Breath of the Wild 2, you know, the thing that's like when we got our first trailer and stuff like that, we basically sort of begin with Link and Zelda on like some sort of mission. All right, like they're on a mission and they're in like underground caverns and they're like becoming they're like underground caverns and stuff like that. Like they're in like underground labyrinth or something like that, or like we don't actually know, like we're not exactly sure where they are or even how they even came to be there in the first place, right? That's like totally like we don't really know. I mean, they're like we can probably assume that they might be on Hyrule Castle because at the end of the trailer, Hyrule Castle is lifted above the ground, and not to mention they find the that dead corpse body, which basically awakens, which everyone most likely assumes is Ganon, and to be honest, we can probably believe that really is Ganon. So I have no doubt in my mind that it is probably Ganon. But you see, the funny thing about this is that during those whole events, during the whole trailers like that, Zelda basically falls into the deep abyss. However, for Link, Link is basically saved by this glowing green hand, and we get to see like things from Link, like we know Link gets a brand new ability that this green hand gives him. He gives him like this sort of like arm bracelet thing that attaches his arm, and then he's able to use this mechanic thing to be able to. Uh, it's like a thing that's going to help Link replace the Sheikah Slate. Like, and you see, the thing about that is that it's really unique when you think about it. Is the fact that Link is going to get a brand new ability, and you see, we don't get any real confirmation or evidence to suggest like what happened to Zelda after she fell into the abyss. You could probably assume that maybe she dies at that moment, but to be honest, I don't think it would be the right moment to basically um kill her off at that moment. It feels like it would be off, like it's not exactly right, like it's not the right moment, it's not the right time. Okay, so a lot of people are basically sort of speculating and sort of like theorizing that Zelda will be playable in some kind of underground labyrinth way. Like she'll be playable in the underground, while Link will be able to explore the lands above Hyrule and the skies as well. Since we do know that it was revealed that we will be able to travel through the skies. Now it is not. I don't think it's been necessarily confirmed that we will be able to traverse through underground tunnels and stuff like that. It has been confirmed that we will traverse through the skies and on the land of Hyrule, but nothing has been necessarily stated by Nintendo in terms of words. We only speculate this because we got the first trailer that shows like underground caverns, and to be honest, like I think it could be a good idea. I mean, I think it could be really interesting, and I feel like it could really work. All right, so that's basically what that at. So, but there's more to go over as well. So, there has been like some rumors that come out. Like none of these rumors have been necessarily confirmed. So please, don't take these as seriously. These just need to be taken with a grain of salt. Okay, so all right. So, basically, to point out is that one thing we can look at that this could be pretty interesting. This might not necessarily be big, but we do know for a fact that well, technically we don't know for a fact. I shouldn't have said it like that. But there have been rumors that basically come out stating that the Sheikah Slate is going to return. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's kind of weird because we know Link is getting a new ability. So will the Sheikah Slate still be useful for him? But then a lot of people have sort of like begin wondering, like, wait a minute, what if Zelda's going to be able to use the Sheikah Slate, right? There have been some theories and like these rumors to come out saying that Link, when you're playing as Link, you're doing more of the heavy on battles and stuff like that. While Zelda's will be more of the like the in-game mechanical kind of situation where you're trying to solve puzzles and you're trying to like you're doing all the puzzling for with Zelda. You're doing all the hard thinking and trying to figure things out with Zelda. With Link, it's more of like the combat experience. One thing I can probably like. There is one game I know, for example, that I can probably use as a reference. It's a completely different game. It's not necessarily the same game, but this is the game I have for reference, right? So think of the original Hulk game based on the 2003 Hulk movie, right? So and this is the PlayStation 2 version that I got. But if anyone's familiar with the game and they played it before, you play as both Hulk and Bruce. Okay. Throughout the game, Hulk's levels are more of like the combat situation where you're doing most of the fighting and heavy fighting with Hulk, right? Especially when it comes to big situations, right? With Bruce's playthroughs were not really in more combat side. It wasn't like anything with fighting. With Bruce, it was more of like sneaking around, trying to get into secret labs without being noticed, trying to escape unnoticed. So that's basically what that was, and that's sort of like how some people are sort of describing how how Zelda's role is supposed to be between Link, where Zelda's is supposed to be like the like the intelligent kind that where you basically need to try to use your head to basically solve the puzzle. That's sort of like what people are saying for Zelda. Now, while I personally am not against that, I would be honest, I would really love to have it as Zelda could have like some good fight scenes. I mean, maybe not as much as Link, but it would be nice if there was more of like a reason instead of just like solving a simple puzzle. I'd be honest, I would really love to see if you can have some action as well. We do know for a fact that you can also you can see that Zelda could be playable, right? And one thing you can look at for like inspiration is Age of Calamity, because and even though this game isn't necessarily canon, like this game isn't canon, all right, it's got like its own separate timeline, and it's not the fact that the timeline is the important part. It's the fact that just like even like in this game, Zelda is a playable character, right? She is a playable character with her own abilities, and she's able to use the Sheikah Slate, all right? And if this game can give us a playable Zelda and prove that Zelda can be playable, then it's barely possible that Zelda can be playable in Breath of the Wild 2. Now, keep in mind, we also have to understand that just because this game proves that she can be playable doesn't necessarily mean that the people who are actually working on Breath of the Wild 2 have to make her playable. It is all up to their choice, and it is a choice that we're going to accept when the day comes. So yeah, so that's for that. Another thing to go over necessarily is that the fact that all right, so in the second trailer, we get a huge reveal that basically shocked everyone, and something that's never actually occurred before. The Master Sword was broken in two. All right, we see we see basically like the bottom part art, with the handle, and part of it's broken off, and it's got some kind of covering on it, I'm not exactly sure what that stuff is around it. I'm not exactly sure it's ever been confirmed what that stuff is, but it's missing the top. So we're not exactly sure how Link is going to fix the Master Sword. One idea we can probably assume and suggest that imagine if one part of the Master Sword is with Link, and then the other part of it, like the tip blade, the tip blade part is with Zelda, all right? And then maybe Zelda will be able to use part of the Master Sword to basically help her. So maybe Fi or Fi will be able to return and be sort of a guidance for Zelda. So maybe Zelda will be able to use it to, I don't know, light certain ways, or maybe she'll be able to use it to protect herself against monsters. We don't actually know. It's I guess it could be a possibility, and it's not a bad one. I would really, I think it'd be a good idea. It could be really good, enjoyable. But it's really so much of we have to wait to know for sure. So that's for that ad. So nothing much else to say on that part. But I'm a big fan. I do think Zelda does have an opportunity, and it does seem like she could really prove to us that she could be playable if the idea is done in a right way. Now, more I should go over, and one idea that we come up with is why some good ideas and how this underground travel could work for Zelda more often than anything. All right, now this basically has to start off with this. So the whole reason that Breath of the Wild 2 came into play is the fact that we actually like it was basically stated that there was too much ideas for the DLC, and that they basically decided to incorporate was the DLC into a new game because there's just too much. All right, and the funny thing about that is that keep in mind we don't actually know we don't actually know 100% sure how much of the DLC necessarily was there exactly. I mean, it's just like there was too much ideas for DLC for Breath of the Wild, so they decided to make a second game for it. And I suppose that could be, I suppose that could be true. I suppose it could be possible. But another thing is that we don't actually necessarily know if the DLC, like they're originally going to present to us in the first game, is basically the same as it is going to be presented to us in the second game. All right. So let's say, like, let's take Underground Travel for instance, right? So let's say originally in the original version of the DLC for Breath of the Wild that they were going to present to us was that you're going to be able to traverse through underground tunnels, but only in one land area. So imagine like if only one area of the entire Hyrule Kingdom, there was only one area that would allow you to traverse through underground, right? Instead of like throughout the entire Hyrule Kingdom, you would only be able to traverse through underground through this one portion area only. So one idea that you can look up, one idea you can take as inspiration would be the labyrinths. Okay, so there are actually a total of 3 labyrinths, but we can probably use the labyrinth as a sort of a possibility of that. Okay, so all right, so going over the labyrinths and stuff like that, the first one we got is the Lome Labyrinth Island. Okay, the Lome Labyrinth Island. It is located in the Akala region. Okay. Then following that one, we also have the North Lome Labyrinth, all right, and that is located in the Heber region, all right. The North Lome Labyrinth located in the Heber region. And then the next one we have is the South Lome Labyrinth, which is located in the Garuda region. So South Lome Labyrinth located in the Garuda region. Okay. Now, so and the reason why I bring these things up is that if we're thinking about a DLC and something big, something like something that can basically change the landscape and give us something different, something unique, then I could probably imagine like maybe some kind of underground labyrinth and stuff like that. So maybe in the original game we were to get like an underground labyrinth, right? Now, the funny thing about that is that while that's not necessarily a bad idea, you have to think about if originally it was supposed to be like an underground labyrinth, and it was only supposed to be in like one certain area, and then to basically make it a different game, you figure they had to expand that even greater. Now, we don't actually know if that's true, but it's not a bad possibility. It's not a bad idea to think of. Okay, so continuing with what I'm saying, so these whole underground labyrinth thing wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea, right? And if that's like one idea we can think about of like this whole DLC taking inspiration from that, and that's basically how that all came to be. Now, maybe in the original version, Link would have only been playable, right? So only Link would have been playable, and to basically do this, they decided to replace Zelda for this version and keep Link for the upper versions and the skies, okay? Which isn't a problem for me at all. I think it would be really good. However, I imagine like they decided to basically take it and expand it to a much greater level, right? And to basically do it like something different compared to all the other labyrinths, they would be, maybe this one would be much more challenging. So maybe this one would have been a much greater labyrinth. It would have been much bigger. It would have probably had a lot more puzzles to it. It maybe would have felt like more of an actual dungeon in that sense. Because for Breath of the Wild, we got lots of dungeons and stuff like that. We didn't get like any traditional dungeons. The only things we really got were like the shrines, and then we also got like the divine beast. And I guess you can consider like the labyrinths a dungeon in some way. They're basically just mazes. But the fact that you're basically like walking around and trying to find your way, and until you actually get to the end point. So I mean, you can sort of consider those as good as replacements as well, but they didn't actually feel like the right things that the people were hoping for. So that's why a lot of people are hoping that we'll probably get traditional dungeons again. It's hard to really say at this point. It's really like up in the air. All right, now after I just explained that necessarily, but like let's think about like this for instance. So if Zelda is going to be playable through underground means, through underground like travels like that, and then maybe she's going to be able to use the Sheikah Slate to her advantage and help her out, like then where's some good ideas on like how this could be. So I think so. All right, if Zelda is going to be playable through underground travels and stuff like that, I do think like I'm hoping it's not just in one area, but the underground travels will be like and who knows, like maybe originally where it was going to be presented at is like completely different, and then maybe they decided to change that through underground travels through entire Hyrule. Like I'm saying, like we don't actually know just yet. It's really hard to say at this point until another trailer comes out and until like we get some actual confirmation. But I'm perfectly good and fine with Zelda being playable. I think she can be really I think she'd be a really fantastic character, so I'm all up for it. Now, one idea I have that I do think it could be possible of where I do have this one possible idea like where this whole where it might have actually began, like not as like the whole underground labyrinth, right? So all right, so let me bring up the original labyrinths again. So the one thing that all these three original labyrinths have in common is that they're located in regions that are not connected to four of the main goddesses, all right, or in terms of their names, all right. So like keep in mind, so you have Akala, Hebra, and Gerudo, each featuring a different labyrinth in their respective regions. All right, and then you also have your other regions such as Central Hyrule. Hyrule you can probably obviously connect to Hylia herself, Eldin to the goddess Din, Lanayru to the goddess Nehru, Farron to the goddess Faror. Everyone else has, and then you have one, two, three, yeah, four more regions after that. Now, the funny thing about this and why I bring this up is that Akala, Hebra, and Gerudo all have these labyrinths in their respective regions. All right, but there is one other region that does not include a labyrinth at all, and that is that is the sorry, that is the Necluda region. Now, the Necluda region is pretty interesting, and why I bring this up. Okay, so the Necluda region is basically the region that is basically right in the middle between Farron region and the Lanayru region. All right, so it's basically like right there in the middle. Right, it's basically right between them. Now, the interesting thing about the Necluda region is that Necluda region actually houses three different villages, right? It features the Hatino village, where you basically get to purchase your house and you get to have your own house. There is the Kakariko village, where Impa and Papaya live. Then you also have the Lurelin village, which is basically a village around the seabed where fishermen basically are at. Now, the one thing about Necluda region is that Necluda is surrounded by a lot of tall land scraping mountains and stuff like that. I mean, sure, like there are other regions as well that have mountains as well, such as Hebra. The Hebra Mountains has them too, and so does Gerudo, right? So, but the thing about Necluda regions is that Necluda regions mountains are they have like a lot of cave like structures, right? Like there's a lot of like cave like structures within these landscapes, these mountains, right? Like there's a lot of cave like structures and underground pathways, right? So there are a lot of things to look forward to in these in the Necluda region. Now, another thing about the Necluda region is that it actually shares part of its borders with Farron, all right? So part of its part of the I believe it's the east part of the east of Necluda is actually shared with Farron, all right? And we know, like, for instance, like, Farron has a lot of connections to the Zonai, and the fact that the Zonai had many connections to the labyrinths and stuff like that. So you can basically see and maybe think it could be possible that if there was going to be another labyrinth, then maybe Necluda could be a good region for it. Now I'm going to what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically show some good areas and like why you can basically see. So I'll basically show some evidence to give my thoughts and sort of explain like why these can be some good areas. All right, so one area you can look forward to in general or for inspiration is between Stinger Cliffs and Ebon Mountain. All right, now this is basically like a pathway, right? So it's basically like in between these two areas, there's a pathway that basically leads to like the sea up to stuff. But above you, there are like a lot of like it's kind of like you're walking up through like an underground a passageway like, and above you there are like mountain structures that and the mountain structure isn't like entirely in whole. It's been like basically cracked, like maybe part of the landscape has fallen through, but you can look at it as inspiration and see what I mean. The fact that there are like cave-like structures. There's like they're basically like cave-like structures in these mountains, and like it's almost like you can expect like maybe there are like some kind of way to traverse underground. Like maybe there was an underground traverse way that we never seen before. other areas you can look for to inspiration is around Kia Pond. Kia Pond is a good example as well. It has a lot of it has a cave like structure as well, where you could probably think that it would be a good way to see like an underground way to travel. Other areas could even include the Cliffs of Quince, right? Cliffs of Quince is basically has like a giant overlapping like, and it's not like a small cave, not like a small cave in general, but it's basically a mountain that's basically like sort of like missing part of it. It's almost like it's been like carved out, but it's still like it's like overlaps it, but it's basically like it's hard for me to explain in general. I can't really think of any good can't really think of any good explanations, but I'm just trying to bring out these things as an example to show that there like it is possible that there could have been a way to do it. And another good thing you can look at is look at dueling peaks, right? Imagine if we got to explore a mountain itself, like we actually got to explore a mountain, right? So we got to travel through like the mountain itself. We got to travel inside to a mountain, right? And like there were plenty of mountains, but we didn't get to like explore them. I mean, we got to walk on the outside of them, but never get to explore the inside of them necessarily. Like we didn't get to do this with Death Mountain. We didn't do this with Hero Mountain. We didn't get to do this with like the Gerudo Mountains. I mean, we got to climb on mountains and walk on top of the mountains, but not inside the mountains, right? So imagine if we got to do something with this with the Dueling Peaks, right? The Dueling Peaks Mountain, like to be honest, I think that would be very exciting, and it would have been pretty fun. But overall, this whole point of what I'm saying is that I really appreciate the fact that Zelda can be playable, and I think she can really work well. If we need to use her for like the smart things, it'll be fine by me. I would hope that maybe we can have a little bit of combat. I mean, maybe not as much as Link, not like seriously like going out there is like slashing and dashing and flying our bow and arrows however we need to. But it would be nice if we had like some kind of like moments where we basically had to think of ways to save Zelda, however that may be. So maybe if like maybe Zelda's used the Sheikah Slate and she's able to use the bombs to knock out enemies, or who knows, right? Any possibility, right? And who knows, like, and to be honest, like, I would love to have Zelda playable, and who knows, like, maybe even her, maybe she'll even be able to use the Master Cycle Zero, right? Like, we do know that in Age of Calamity, she has her own Master Cycle Zero as well, and the fact that we do get this Breath of the Wild. So who knows? Like maybe Zelda will be able to use the Master Cycle Zero in Breath of the Wild too. I had a lot of fun with the Master Cycle Zero. I was very so many berries. I was so very excited when I finally beat that DLC 2 back, and I was able to get the Master Cycle Zero. I love the Master Cycle Zero. Oh man, I can't get enough of that thing. Really my overall point. And look, I know it's hard for some people to basically believe, and I know some people are basically sort of giving me a doubt. Maybe it's not going to be possible, and that's nothing wrong, right? It's nothing wrong at all. But I am willing to hope for the best and think it'll be fair to give it a fair chance. So I'm all up for Zelda being playable. I will. So yeah, so I will wait to know for sure until it's actually revealed. But I just want to give my thoughts and how I could see it possible. So yeah, so I'm all up for it. But that's all I wanted to say. Hey, if you did enjoy everything I offered to say, please let me know by smashing that like button, alright? And feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bells, okay? I'm not sure when I'll be able to do another Zelda video and like that when it'll come out. Whenever it can, I'll do it. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing my One Piece chapter review. But overall, so yeah, so that's basically all I have. So hey, you all have a great day, and bye now.